Hello and welcome. How do we bridge the digital gap? How do businesses navigate this gap? Do you have all of the pieces in place with big data and AI? Are you on the verge of a digital transformation but still have some concerns? We're going to dive deep into these issues with an amazing panel coming right up. My name is Doyle Buehler, and today we're going into part 1 of 2 on how to bridge big data and the AI digital gap. It's part of a study just published by the Keenfolks, where they've taken the insights from 59 experts from around the world and created a roadmap going forward to bridge the digital gap in these disruptive, uncertain times. You can take a look. We'll have the link in the chat, but also in the presentation coming up. You can go to thekeenfolks.com/bridge-the-digital-gap. It's a bit of a mouthful. All right, so we're going to show you how to overcome common big data challenges, build an AI journey for your company, increase sustainability, and dive into what the future holds for big data and AI. Now, if you're here on Zoom, then please ensure your mic is muted, but we all have time at the end to have a Q&A. So please organize your questions now and throughout the program, and we'll get to them at the end as well. If you're watching this live or in replay across the social, please ask your questions along the way in the comments, and we'll answer them as quickly as possible. All right, today I'm with my amazing guests. I've got Miguel Machado, the Keenfolks CEO, Digital and AI. I have David Vivancos, thought leader participant of the study, and Tony Flath, thought leader participant of the study as well. My name is Doyle Buehler, and I run a strategic digital marketing consultancy based in Australia called Depth.digital. All right, let's get to know the panel. So quickly tell us who you are and your engagement with big data AI. Miguel, do you want to start us off?
Yeah, thank you very much, Doyle. Thank you all for putting all this together. It's really a pleasure to be with you today. So I'm Miguel Machado, as you said. I'm co-CEO and partner of the Keenfolks. The other co-CEO is Xavi. In this case, I'm responsible as well for all the part of digital transformation and AI. And I would define myself as a digital transformation and artificial intelligence entrepreneur, where we are running more than 4 projects in the area, and looking really forward to discuss this with you. Thank you very much.
Yeah, excellent. Thank you. Tony, tell us a bit about yourself.
Sure, thanks so much. And Doyle, so cool that we come from the same city, Edmonton, Alberta. You were actually born here. I was born in McCreary, Manitoba, so we got a story to go there. But it's great to catch up and actually be able to have a chat. So my journey into big data AI has been an interesting one over the last few years. I've been engaged in the social media community probably 5 years now, with more engagement. And over the last few years, first I got more interested in AI and how that big data plays from a cybersecurity role I was in at the time in telecommunications, right? And just seeing how, that was being used and automated and different things intrigued me. And then from there, doing work in the social media landscape with brands like IBM, Oracle, Microsoft, I got more to learn, different things about where AI was going and all these different things. And along the way, I had an interest to get a podcast going, which I do have going now, The Wave of Change. That's all focused on emerging tech and AI. But my great fortune is I've had the ability globally to interact with some really significant, thought leaders like yourselves in big data AI. And I've just been a student of life from these people and learned a lot. So really intrigued and excited to be on the show today. For my day job, I work in telecommunications and with enterprise clients in working with them on new technologies and what their requirements, all that good stuff. So really looking forward to the chat today. Thanks.
Awesome. Thanks, Tony. All right. And welcome, David, as well.
Thank you very much, Doyle. Very nice to be here today with all of you. Well, my background, basically, over the last 25 years, I have been creating companies in the edge of technology, what is possible and what is not. And over the last maybe 10 years or so, basically related to neuroscience and AI. I have been also writing a couple of books. One is called From Big Data to Artificial Intelligence. The last edition released last year. And just a few months ago, I released also my last book, Automate or Be Automated. And my daily job basically is advising companies in the States and some in Europe too, basically helping them to become data-driven companies. And I also have my own company, Mind Big Data, where we are trying to decode what happens inside one's brain and use it as the next way to interact with computers, basically using your brain instead of typing computers, talking to computers, and so on. Basically creating a big data of brain signals and a big data, of course, with AI algorithms to try to decode it. So basically, that's my daily job.
Wow, that sounds fascinating. All right, well, let's get into this. So we've got some amazing brain horsepower here, right? We have, for the people who are just joining us, we have David Vivancos from Madrid. We have Miguel from Portugal. We have Tony from Canada, and myself. I'm all the way hosting from Australia as well. So it's cool to see that we have a really global audience as well. We met our keynote, so let's get into the questions. David, Miguel, Tony, and myself. All right. So let's start it off. What are the most important applications of big data today? Where do we want to start? Miguel.
Well, I think that in terms of AI applications right now, we are living in a golden era for AI. I think we can compare clearly with the electricity deployment in the moment that every company started to apply in different areas. So the fields that AI can be applied are diverse. In this case, I'm more familiar with the marketing side, but there is a lot of applications in medical applications, research. Even now, in the moment that we are living with COVID, it has been a relevant field in the area as well. All the parts of the financial area, fintech, where it's been developed really strong. And finally, robotics and manufacturing. There is many other fields, but I would say these are the ones that are really the most important ones. In our case, in the Keenfolks, we want to be an AI first agency in 2023. There are fields that are clearly defined and we have it as a priority. All the part of SEO, content creation, social media, PR, design, email marketing, development, and even all the part of quality processes and validation. But we are very human-centric and we are very focused in training the people that we have inside. So the impact that we can have in terms of technology and the transformation of the team that we have gets in place in order to combine and have the right balance between AI automation and also the talent that we have inside. We believe that there are fields that will never be substituted. We believe that intuition, wisdom, there are things that are really difficult to get there in terms of AI, at least with the technology that we have. But I mean, the field is impressive and the potential is there. So we are really into it. We are developing several projects in the area. And we are really convinced that in 2023, we become an AI first agency with a clear, defined strategy where David Vivancos is a great component to steer the area along with Marta Sanz that is taking very well care of the development. And we believe that this is going to be the future, clearly.
Wow. Yeah, some big plans for big data. Tony, what do you think?
Well, I agree, and I see a lot of the same areas as Miguel. I completely see that. Manufacturing, absolutely. You see a lot of different areas there where it's developing out. Medical, healthcare, huge potentials there where you see different solutions. Like I had said, my early introductions first into, more into AI through cybersecurity. There's, a number of things that are quite interesting, are from what you look at from big data and how, that's being harnessed and utilized. Certainly seen more there. I think you'll see, more and more happening at the edge with IoT, especially with 5G enabling, right? So we'll see more rollout from there, I'm sure. And then, interesting to see more, from chatbots, different things like that roll out and how they're really, harnessing information and automating different things. We'll see more with that, I would think as well.
Excellent. Thank you. And David, what do you think? What are we going to see?
For me, big data basically is one of the pillars of AI. So basically, we can understand basically AI if we don't think about data and we don't think, of course, about algorithms and computing. But regarding the most important applications, I agree, fully agree with both of you. It's basically everywhere. Now with the COVID outbreak, we have a lot of things going on related to trying to decode things related to the development of the virus and many other stuff, and of course, getting vaccines and so on. But of course, it expands to everything. The key point is that we have machines that are starting to do things better than humans in different areas. Just this week, I'm at an international conference, the ACL, the computational linguistic conference, that is all related to why machines are starting to be better than us at understanding language, for example. We have the same with vision. Just a couple of weeks ago, it was at CVPR, one of the main conferences also in this regard. So basically, when machines start to master different areas, and of course, language and vision are one of the keys that we have as humans, we are starting to see basically it is spreading everywhere. I really don't see a field. The question should be, which is not important to have data-driven companies, and for that, big data is basically the starting point. If we don't have data, we won't be able, of course, to get analytics or get AI trying to understand what happens with our business. So I see it basically everywhere too.
But fundamentally, are we sort of in that stage, obviously a bit of a transformation where we're trying to be more digital, less digital, more AI, less AI, more human, less human? Like, we're kind of setting the stage here for a big transformation. And should we be worried about, data, AI, and humanity within that complex mix?
Yeah, I think we should be worried because everything is changing so fast. I have been in technology since I was 8, when I was learning to code assembly. And basically technology over the last 7 years or so, it's changing very rapidly. This field, the AI field, we have seen things that previously were only thought to be possible in the realm of science fiction. So yes, we are heading into very different waters that really, we don't know really what's going to be there. But it's a challenging time. That's also, I think it's fascinating to be in that moment in history, to be able to create it and to build it and to, of course, create the think tanks to make it all together so we don't lift anyone apart. Yep.
I absolutely agree, David. And like, I find this so interesting as well. I think that things that really differentiate and things should be watched is your whole country and how they're building infrastructure and different design into enabling AI is huge. I think that's going to be fundamental. I think, just in how it's embraced and utilized, there's certainly things that you have to look at. Think of this, for example, if you look at all these solutions that are being built out and patents that are being put out in the world, and you follow the trends of what's happening with AI today, China is clearly winning the race right now as it looks at deploying out AI, seemingly from different stats and things like that are going around out there in the internet that I'm sure we've all seen. But the point is there is a great opportunity for society as a whole to really embrace this. But yeah, certainly I just touched on this on a podcast I did on July 4th with a few influencers. There is so many things that need to be addressed in how that rolls out. You look at privacy, you look at how that's going to roll out. You just look at the licensing and the IP that's being developed into this. And then you look at the global scale of cyber warfare really that's happening, right? Where that IP becomes highly valuable in a global scale, right? Where they could potentially breach that and get to that technology quicker. So it is a really interesting time, but also an incredible opportunity.
Yeah. I would add up, and it's quite interesting that it's an entrepreneurship moment. Now, I think that the basics that we needed to develop in the field are already there. We have data abundance, that is the base, as David was saying. We have already the computational capability. We know the part of deep learning development. I think that we have great professionals. I think the Keenfolks is a very good example. All the part of data analysts, scientists, architects, and developers that are really coming into the market, and that can make the difference. And finally, I think that I would come back to your point, Tony, the part of China. I think that one of the biggest accelerations in the area can come from the government regulation. And China doesn't really have one. So it's very open. And I think that can be an opportunity for the other countries to anticipate what is coming and to have a good politics around the area. So I think that's a key point. We've seen that, for instance, TikTok, it was banned from India due to facial recognition and privacy issues. It has driven the risk to become banned in the US. I don't know, but I don't know if you know, but TikTok is based in China, no? And it has China investment in the background. So I think that most of these thematics we were going to live and discuss it over in the next few years, all the part of data privacy, government regulation, and that will be very important along with the other three, computational capabilities, data abundance, and finally the human resources that is required for the development of the area. So yeah, very interesting, and it's going to be really challenging.
Yeah, they've talked about banning TikTok in Australia so far. They haven't actually carried that out, but could be an interesting thing as we go. But is there like a trade-off though? Like, is it this a net zero scenario where, we adding more AI, but we're taking way more humanness in this whole process through the use of big data? Or is it a plus up? We're actually enabling, we're actually enhancing, we're actually empowering people because we can use big data and AI.
I'm going to quote Carla Gentry on this one. When I met her in New York, and something that really stuck with me, right? Think about when the car first rolled out, right? And people all of a sudden went from living in villages and being in a small area and not really expanding further out of that space, right? Then all of a sudden the car enables them to drive to different cities, to drive to different states, to drive to different, to a different country that's connected, right? So it fully enabled it. And at first, I'm sure that was quite, a fear factor and things that were changing, maybe that, seeing things moving quickly and things like that were hard to deal with, but people eventually accepted it. And I think that's a lot of the same thing with AI. You are going to see some staggering things happen to certain areas and certain jobs without a doubt. But I think also from people that I work with, and like Sally Eves is really about tech for good and really about how do you work with these people. And I've learned a lot from her on this and other people, is you're certainly going to see some other things evolve where, other jobs that will help support that are thought to really overall provide more jobs or as many jobs, just in varying ways. So it's a debate on whether it's just going to, all the jobs are going to disappear, or if it's going to better augment those jobs to enable some maybe more creativity or more other kind of jobs that, individuals might pursue. It is a big shift in society, just like Miguel had said, like the rollout of electricity.
But it can.
Tony raised a big point, because it's all about augmentation at the end. Of course, at the beginning, the augmentation is going to be to have these AIs and this big data to help us basically have better sense of our time, basically freeing some of our time, because we're going to automate many of these things. But over the long run, probably most of these jobs are going to be automated too. Some of my work, most of course with the Keenfolks and with many others, is also trying to automate the things that you do. So basically, if you do algorithms, the next thing is to do AutoML and try to automate also your creations. So at the end, basically, it's going to be fully automated. That's my view. But it's true that if humans augment ourselves, maybe we can cope with that, or maybe we can over the long run. We are talking about maybe 20 or 25 years. But over the short term, of course, we need to have this AI augmented business decision making. So basically, we can reach better areas that previously were basically not possible because we don't have that kind of technology in our hands.
Okay, cool. So we have 2 votes for that it's going to empower humans. Miguel, do you want to take the opposing side, or are you going to support it?
I'm a supporter, clearly. I think that it's a human responsibility right now. It's not only a matter of organizations or governments or companies. It's a matter of our responsibility as individuals. We all should work on a plan. So it's clear that it's going to take time for all the part of machine learning and deep learning to substitute some of the characteristics that we have as humans. All the part of connection, intuition, wisdom that we take with time, all this sensitivity that it's very difficult to replace. And we should really focus on a plan to understand how can we add value as individuals, as companies, and further in terms of influence and be an evangelist to the whole society, because it's going to be really important. I mean, there are statistics that identify like 40 to 50% of replacement of jobs in US in the next 15 years. It's been said by Chris Penn, Kai-Fu Lee, a lot of experts. And the challenge is there. I mean, it's clear the impact in economics, and if there is an impact in economics, the impact on people is going to be huge. So I think that definitely it's our responsibility as individuals to have a plan, and we need to have a plan. It's not something that can be optional. It's an area so important as we never seen before, and we need really to embrace it.
We can't just be random about it, right? We really sort of have to have a strategy, a plan to go forward. All right, excellent. Thank you. So let's move into question number 2. How would you define the biggest big data and AI challenge? What are those? Where do we look for them? What's the biggest barriers? What's causing the friction here?
I guess I'll kick start it. I see it from this perspective. I see this in conversations I've had. I've seen this from, even podcasts and just chatting with different people. One of the biggest challenges today with big data and AI is not a real understanding of what do you want to accomplish with this? What is the purpose behind it? And more the problem of just throwing technology at it for technology's sake, right? Without a lot of thought and reason behind it, right? And really looking at where it's going to drive value. I think companies that are looking at this from how does this drive value to the organization, both internally, externally, and are really bridging it from that and really looking at how do all people in all departments, all process tie into this, I think are really, leveraging it and better developing it forward from what I've seen.
Fascinating. David, you want to go?
Yeah, I think the biggest challenge I've seen so far basically is people, is not technology. I think if you start a big data and AI strategy from just small departments, that's where the issues start to come. If you start it from the top, from the CEO on the board, then you start getting good results. And another big thing that I see is that if you think as basically you try to do a very big, basically a project with big data and AI, it usually fails. So basically you need to start, you need to have a lean approach. You need to go step by step, trying things, but with the decisions being taken at the biggest areas of the company, the main areas of the company. So basically you can go step by step, and you can keep learning and try focusing on being better every time. Because the thing with technology in general is that technology evolves so fast. Some products at the moment, they have a time span of maybe 6 or 8 months or 9 months. So basically you can think of a bigger strategy since you're going to need, for example, a couple of years or 3 or 5 years. I never foresee a good strategy that is beyond the year time frame, because technology changes so fast that you need to go at the same pace. So basically go step by step and start it from the top. That's my question.
So what happens? Should we get rid of the humans then if they're causing the problems?
No, I don't think we should get rid of the humans, but the thing is that humans can be a good helpers in this field, or can be really the key stoppers. So when I say humans, is that I think that humans should be, we need to start with the humans that take the decisions and that can move forward. Otherwise, we are going to have a lot of roadblocks that are going to make the project very, very hard to accomplish.
Excellent, thanks. Miguel.
Yeah, definitely. I think the humanization is a very important topic. I think about humans before technology. It was always one of the important fields in any technology area when it was adopted. So we need to come back to that. I think that the working force preparation based on the limitations and how to adapt the value, the required value, how we monitor the development and how we lead the industry development. That's very important. The government regulation, all the part of AI ethics. Now that we've seen cyber attacks, how are we going to control that? And then finally, I think that it's pretty known, all the part of data privacy. And here several examples we've been already discussing in terms of social media, all the part of Facebook, some examples like Cambridge Analytics and what happened. And also lately, the TikTok example is a very good example. So I think that these four big challenges, the humanization, working force preparation, the government regulation, and finally the data privacy, are going to lead the discussion of the area as the biggest challenge.
So is there a quick way to overcome these then? Like, is this something that we can resolve fairly quickly, or does this unroll it past like the 5-year plan? We're going to talk about that coming up, but is that like a 5 to 10 year plan, a 10 to 15, or can we address these issues right now?
I think David touched on it a bit, and I'll kind of carry forward, and certainly would leverage his deeper understanding. But it's like he touched on this briefly of more of an agile approach to how it rolls out. And I had a recent podcast with Dan Yarmuluk, and I've developed over the years a good friendship with him and learned so much from him. And one of the things he touches on, to have successful deployments of AI and big data projects is really to start and take an initial look. If you're going to really embrace emerging technology, think about how your big data and your AI play all the way along that process, right? So for example, I read something, and I think it was something from on the notion of, so if you have a DevOps world, right, where you're more agile and you're rolling out things quickly, iterations to move things along, if you take that same approach almost like a data ops perspective, right, where you're looking at all the stages and processes, and then you're also putting in another thing that's key to this, let's back right up, and I think Doyle, you touched on this, is data science people. You certainly need to have individuals that are highly skilled in this, highly trained, understand it. It is a newer field. Many people are, into, doing some incredible things, but it's certainly somewhere where you want to have expertise. And, just like Bill Schmarzo, the big, he's the dean of big data, and he's been a real influence to me as well. Just taking that, he calls it from the wolf pack perspective, right? Where you take a number of resources that are effective in data science and you distribute them so that you don't have one core individual that learns everything in a point of failure, right? You kind of spread that out a little further. And then from what Dan was saying to me that really impacted me is you take bite-sized projects. You don't try to solve the whole problem all at once. You do it in iterations more to roll out. You don't have to be AI and harnessing big data across the whole entire company to be an AI-driven company. You can be doing pieces of it, right? So I think that's key as well. The bigger stuff on privacy, those other things definitely have to be impacted. They're going to be longer term. But I think there's still enough ground to be made right there, right now, especially in this time of uncertainty where you can, put in things in place right now to better prepare yourself for the future. I think there's, that's the approach I would see taking from experts I've talked with.
Okay. So, Miguel, do you think we can overcome these fairly quickly, and David as well?
I think that definitely we have a big opportunity right now. I think that we have a digital steering that we never seen before. So there is long time that digital transformation was in all boards of the companies, but now it's a reality, and it's coming very fast. So direct to consumer for companies like fast-moving consumer goods sectors is coming very strong. And one of the realizations that we can reflect upon is the importance of the e-commerce. So as you know, in China, they are really developed on that. They have WeChat with QR codes that allows the payments, the direct to payment, and they are very evolved in terms of automatization of the point of sales. So there is a lot of data there, and it's very important. So now companies like all the fast-moving consumer goods, like Coca-Cola, Mondelez, all the big ones, Nestle, they are all thinking about that, how to connect. And I think that a global vision is what can somehow transform the business. And by transforming the business, all the other issues we will have to overcome. I think that economy is always pushing first. So by pushing first, we need then to lead, and to lead with responsibility. So I think that it's a big advantage that we are having right now, unfortunately because of COVID crisis. But we have a great opportunity, and we need to be wise in the proposals, in the strategy, in order to take the best out of this opportunity.
Yeah, and finding the right people is a good thing that Tony says. Of course, if we don't have people, and there is a lack of people in this field at the moment, it's critical. And just last week I was talking with a school principal, and I was told her that they are basically creating the last teachers of machines. The child that she is trying to build in that school are going to be the teachers of machines. And in that regard, we need to focus a lot on education. If we don't educate in this field and we don't create a good pool of people to help us drive it faster, it's going to be an issue for the countries that don't do it. And regulation, on the other hand, is going to be critical. If we have like regulations that really stagnate or maybe don't delay basically its development due to many incredible factors, it's going to be challenging. That's why countries like China, as you said, and others are going to be faster, because they're going to have the data and they're going to learn from that data. They're going to put any roadblocks to use them, and that's going to be an issue. And also, we have many countries. Most of the countries really don't have good AI strategies, and they are really not investing a lot of money in this, and that's going to be an issue too. We are going to have really good countries that are going to be good in this, and bad countries in terms of not being ready for that. I usually go to the main AI conference in that regard. It's called AI for Good. It's in Geneva, with basically all the UN institutions and the X-Prize Foundation and others got together to see if we can make a better world related to having AI to reach everyone in all the planet. And it's going to be a challenge. So because we're going to have countries that are not really understanding this on a deeper sense. Yeah.
Well, and I'll go back to my example where I was talking about going from a horse and carriage to an automobile, right? So if you look at like AI now, you've got all these factors moving so quickly ahead. You do have to be better prepared in order to meet those requirements, right? You have to have that bigger scale. Or, for example, let's say that you don't have the most appropriate big data. Big data, you mentioned it yourself, David, big data by itself is meaningless, right? Unless it has an appropriate highway and a vehicle to get to that big data, right? So, that's something that I really see is you really got to have the people, process, and ideology about that technology and how it's going to be used. I know you touched on it, David, and I totally see that. And I know even from things I've read about you, Doyle, and projects you're working on, it's something you look at, right? And it's certainly something I see as well. And I know, Miguel, it's something important to how you're rolling the Keenfolks out as well.
Yeah, and it becomes really part of the strategy. You have to look at that, I believe, first, and how does that data fill that gap, right? You can't say, well, we need big data, we need AI, when you don't actually have a strategy on how are you actually going to use this? Why are you using this, right? And I think some companies are looking at maybe a little bit backwards perhaps, but stand back, see what you actually want to accomplish, build that into the strategy. Then how can we use that with data about our customers or whatever the case may be, privacy concerns obviously being looked at, but also what can we actually do with that and how can we create that experience as well.
Yeah, I think that you mentioned a lot of topics that are really important for the field. One is learning. I think that we need to develop talent. I think that it's also a responsibility for the individuals. It's not only a global responsibility, but it's a responsibility for each one of us. I think self-learning is by itself a very important area. I think that there is a huge opportunity in the AI development that didn't happen in many areas. Right now, there is a very collaborative setting. So there is a lot of open source, a lot of information that is being shared directly by the researchers. And moreover, they are coming very fast. So everybody can have access to that. And that is generating a pool of innovation that didn't happen before in many areas. So I think definitely it's a great opportunity, and it's an opportunity to embrace from all the aspects, from individuals, from the talent that is going to participate, and also from the organizations. So definitely it's a very important point and an opportunity for everybody.
Yeah, so those are some big ideas. some big thoughts and big concepts about big data. Where do we start? Where do companies start with this journey? Like how do they start with an action plan? Maybe we could walk through a few steps or a few ideas. Your number one starting point or a process that you could recommend. David, you want to start?
Yeah, for me, it's datification, and datification, because you can start any AI thing or big data thing if you don't have data. And it's true that we live in a data overload world where basically we have a lot of flowing data through IoT and many other means. But it's true that many companies that I see, they are not capturing the data that they produce. So basically, we need to go into the dematerialization of the world, basically creating all the physical assets into digital assets. That I think is one of the first starting points, because if you don't have data, you can have AI. So I think datification of the company is a critical step. And of course, choose the right partners, because if you have like great partners that can help you bridge that gap, like the Keenfolks, and of course having advisors to help you in that field, it's also critical, because if you want to start just with the knowledge of your own field, it's not going to be enough. So basically get to the best practice and find the right people to help you go in that direction. But the first starting point is datification, for me.
Perfect. So it's like you're a sheep farmer and you've got to put up a fence, right? And you've got to house this data. What are you going to do with this data? How is it going to be used, right? And then, so where you could start is, David, you pointed out from a perspective of, defining how that data flow is going to get through, how it's going to be used, things like that. Also, I think important is looking at, what in that data are your crown jewels? Where's the value? Where's the value that you want to drive out to your organization that might make more economic sense, that might add new lines of business, or it might add new levels of service to customers, that might, make you socially more aware for something that you're doing, right? Or you're broadcasting, right? I think it's important, along with developing that, technology, is to not get pigeonholed into just looking at that. I think you have to chart the whole journey and how that experience looks to everybody in there. But a starting point, definitely, look to where the value could be driven from, right?
Excellent. Miguel.
Yeah, definitely. I think that some of the points already mentioned. I would add up that I think that most companies should think about what's going to happen in 5 years. We've been seeing that a lot of new functions started to pop in for the last 10 years, but they were going to be transformed in the next 5 years. So how we envision in the company the working force. Now that's very important. How we identify the areas of value, like Tony is mentioning. Now, how we empower the people to get transformed in the company. All these questions that companies should start with to build up a plan. I mean, I don't see many companies working with plans to anticipate what's going to happen in Internet of Things, in 5G, and all these facilitators for AI that with data and with the data field and with the data possibilities that we have in the companies can transform the whole business and can add up in terms of competitiveness, or can put business out. So that's really a survival question, and we need to work on the plan.
But you'd think during this time of utmost importance in survival, companies would be embracing that. And are they still kind of running scared? Like, quite honestly, I've seen a lot of companies kind of withdraw during this stage. During the crisis and that sort of thing. Yet there's so many opportunities that they could actually use if they could build more digital assets, if they could leverage those assets, if they could, understand how those all fit together. To me, it's a huge missed opportunity. It's like businesses are going out of business, not because the world's changed, it's because they have decided not to change their model and how they actually grow it with big data, customer experience, all these kind of digital gap issues that we're talking about. Why do you think that might be? Or is that true or false?
Well, I recently had a podcast with Matt Carletto out of Poland. He works in startups in Poland. Very interesting guy. You can see him on TED Talks. I had the chance of meeting him when I was in San Francisco for Think 2019. Very interesting individual. And one thing that he left with me on the podcast that really stuck with me through this whole COVID epidemic and pandemic is historically we're at a point of great opportunity. Even though we're at a great challenge, we're at a historic event in life. That's clearly, apparent to all of us. But he really saw it from three perspectives, right? From three perspectives. You have organizations that they are out of business. They are no longer in business, or they are soon to be closed, right? Then two, you have organizations that are basically doing, some adapting and, some kind of projects, keeping things going on, but not really taking too many steps going forward. Then you have the innovative organizations who are truly becoming the leaders of tomorrow. And he gave me a really good example, a simple example of a gym that was, experiencing a membership issue through the COVID of not having anybody come to the gym. And they quickly transformed. They defined that customers still needed to work out, even maybe more so with some kind of home regiment and things like that, right? And they quickly augmented, they quickly got a site set up, they quickly did a number of different things, they quickly had a video system enabled, they quickly got their trainers involved with this, and they gained ground, and they actually gained clients through this. So I think that there is a really great opportunity, and what excites me about this study is what are we going to see from organizations that are really doing that, and what does it make a difference? And hopefully that will contribute to other organizations taking that leap forward.
And I think seeing that digital, it might be fun, Miguel, to do like in a year from now, see kind of who fell into the digital chasm and who kind of came up on the other side.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, definitely. I think that we live in this economy surviving era. I even go further regarding the Tony analysis, and I would say that companies that don't embrace disruptive innovation, they will not have a future, because this is how it is. I mean, and they should think about long run and the vision that they have for all these things that are happening. I mean, you see that the leading companies in the world right now are extremely oriented to testing, and they test more than 1,000, 2,000 times each one of the business that they have, according with the responsibility to innovate and to get the competitive edge. So, and this is not only for the technology sector. I think this is valid for any sector in the business. And companies need to partner with agencies, consultancies, and also develop this entrepreneur philosophy in order to get this edge. And it's disruptive. It's not only innovation right now, it's disruptive. And because there is the big opportunity. And that is the responsibility for every company.
Yeah. But is the digital gap getting bigger? Is this chasm getting bigger, or is it getting smaller? You look at a company like Cirque du Soleil, 2 weeks ago, they went into receivership. How many digital assets did they have? Did they actually utilize these? How much did they use the data that they had to create, new and engaging content, or use digital assets in a different way or different manner? Streaming spectacle kind of thing comes to mind, where they could actually profit or, see in that opportunity. So are some companies just missing it? Is this gap getting bigger? Is it getting smaller as we progress with the technology? What do you think?
I think it's getting bigger, because basically
the gap is getting bigger.
Yeah, I think it's getting bigger, because the thing that you need to start it is going to basically be more challenging for the companies. And if you have started too late, basically you are going to be missing out. What we call today digitization is what we did, for example, when I started my first companies in 1995. Basically, theoretically, it's the same. Basically, the technology may differ, but some of the things are very similar. And some companies at that time did do nothing, and many companies still do nothing at the moment. So I think that you either embrace big data and AI at the moment, or you will be in the graveyard of companies.
So in other words, those businesses deserve to fall into the chasm.
Yeah, well,
Yes
the
or no?
graveyard.
The graveyard, the digital graveyard
Yeah.
takes another victim.
Hey, the milk truck with the horse and carriage isn't coming around anymore, right?
Yeah, true. There's still some more to go. All right, cool. So moving on, what is going to be, we did talk briefly about it, but the next 5 years, right? What's going to be the biggest impact that we see within business with big data and AI?
Well, from my point of view, I think that definitely is the entrepreneur's time. I think that right now AI is divided between 6, 7 big companies that are steering AI from a strategic logic. Now we all know some of them now. So Google, Amazon, Tencent, well, a lot of Chinese that are coming to the place as well, Alibaba and all of them. And I think that the future is going to depend so much of them, but more from the entrepreneurship that we can add up, because there is a lot of ideas that we can put in place. And as I said, I see it like the electricity discovery moment, and where we started to deploy the electricity in all the kind of businesses that we had possibility with. So this is the kind of era that we live. It's a big revolution, and it's really exciting. So the way that we approach it is going to be the difference between really to take the opportunity on and or just lose it, as we were saying.
I'm going to give an example of what's going to be available, really even just in the shorter term, 3 years. And then I want to turn it over to David to get his insights on this, right? I recently watched and read some information, and you touched on this, David, on how like language is going to be really automated within 3 years, to the point where it's almost like the Star Trek replicate, or like where they have the language ability to talk to one another and have it do right there in their ear, translate it as they're talking. This is 3 years away from happening, apparently. Now, David, maybe you can talk to that a little more, but when you think what the impact of AI and capability is going to be in 3 years, you wouldn't like, it's at a point where, do you teach your kids a language now if it's going to be automated? I think there's still value in that, but just think about this from, a real fundamental change over the world. And this is just one example. And David, I'd love to get your insight on that.
Yeah, fully agree. 3 years or maybe even less. Just this week I have been in this conference that is still going on. And basically our brain has close to 100 billion neurons and trillions of connections of these connections between the neurons. And just in the last networks that we have to understand language precisely are close to these 1,000 billion parameters. The last one just a few weeks ago was 200 billion parameters. And we have now at the moment ones that are close to 1 trillion parameters. American trillions. It is true that we don't have the other computing power to do all the things that we want to do with this technology, but it is true that language is fully dominated by AI, and 3 years or maybe less, we will have this replicator that you say, Tony, totally agree. For me, the next 5 years is going to be automation. If you don't automate, basically you're going to be very, very soon very out of business. So I think, of course, robotics is going to be playing a big role here. We, of course, need to reduce the cost. We need to get also into energy. Energy is going to be another of the key aspects to grow, because we can have robots that really go fade out because they don't have energy. But for me, automation is the big part. Just to name an example, I have one of my clients in the US, a CEO, not very popular, asked me just a few years ago if I can get his company to be from 5,000 employees to 5 employees in 5 years, basically automating all the other jobs. It is true that for him it's not going to be 5 years, it's going to be a bit more, but it's true that either his company do it, or maybe another startups come from the Bay Area or whatever, or from Singapore, and is going to do the same with just 5 people. So the thing is, you need to automate. You need to understand the process that you do in your business and keep the automation as your mantra, so you really cope up with what is coming.
Yeah, no, that's fascinating. So do you? And I do want to learn to speak Spanish though before this all happens. So
I'm with you there. I'm with you. Yeah.
But is there like an inflection point, like we have these merging issues, a tipping point, inflection point, whatever you want to call it, where we're seeing sort of an acceleration of this, where more and more companies are kind of getting things done, and we're reducing, obviously not the effectiveness of the company. We're increasing the effectiveness, but reducing sort of that human requirement through automation. Is there something like that? And if there is, where would we be at in
We
this
are starting
stage?
to have AI as a service. Basically, we are starting to have like
AI as a service.
what previously was AI, now is basically just an app. Yeah, that's one of the areas.
Tony or even Miguel?
Yeah, I think that, humans are humans. And I think that the first thing that we feel is resistance, no? So we will resist. So the first phase is resistance. And I think that there is important topics in the table that we will refrain us to embrace this totally. One is clearly the substitution of human labor. So how are we going to approach this? I don't see many companies to come with this message. So we listened recently, like 2 weeks ago, that Microsoft replaced 12 journalists that were doing MSN content. Of course, there is a PR idea behind, but it's true that there are not many companies that can come out from different areas saying, okay, I'm going to substitute already 20% or 30%. So I think that we are seeing this from, I would say, an area that always suffered a lot of transformations, like manufacturing. But there are not going to be many countries that will have, countries and companies that will have the courage to go and face this challenge in the right way. So I think that the space is for a lot of startups, like David was mentioning, that will come first. And this maybe is an opportunity loss from many companies that will not face this in a serious way, with the right ethics, but always thinking about transforming.
Absolutely. And I like to think about it like this too. I like to think about it as enhancing, like wherever capable. And this is something I hope to see with this, where it's an enhancement of what a human can do with it, right? Where the human is thought through the whole process. And maybe so many automated processes can't be done by a human, but if they are done and they enable the human to focus more on some other things, or customer journey, or social awareness, or other things like that that are better for the society, then that's a positive thing. And I think that's really key to how this rolls out. And I think it's very crucial that that human element be really a key component to all of it, all the way through, even in the process of highly automating jobs, right? What does that mean going forward? And take robotics even for, this is what I find interesting is, even take robotics, or, the things that they're doing for people that have lost limbs, right? With a robotic arm. It's amazing, where it's physically connecting with your nervous system almost, right? Like, these are things where it's so intriguing because it's just an extension of the person. It's not a replacement. It's not a, anything else like that. So my hope and my desire, and really even from, some people I've chatted with out there that I've mentioned, is to really see that focus more on how is that going to better the overall human, humanity.
Is there a maximum or a minimum though?
Pardon me?
Is there like a maximum or a minimum though?
It's really, that we're so, like, look at it like this. Where we are in all of this AI, it's like we're hardly walking with it, right? We're not even a toddler, right? We're just scratching the surface with what this capability has, right? So, there's a lot that has to be defined along that. And, it really is in a 3-year window, you don't know what's available next, right?
So would you put us kind of sub 20% in terms of that interaction between humanness and AI, or higher? And what's the maximum level that we could get in the next 5 years?
I'd probably say that now, but where do you go to? That's a really great question. And what does that all look like? That's a big question. But it's big data and it's AI,
Yeah,
right?
there you go. Some big issues.
Way to nail it.
Yeah, and a big data gap too. So what are you thinking, Miguel and David?
So from my point of view, and coming back to the gap that we were talking, I think that consumers are embracing technology in a very fast pace. This will guarantee that we will have the technology connection and also the data to operate. And in all these fields, it really depends on the people and the way that they're going to embrace the innovation. So I think that is really the key point right now. And I think that a positive understanding of what is the future from my side is always the option. So I don't see it in a negative way. I see it in a very optimistic and positive way. And finally, we will be able to manage this technology like we manage the rest that have been happening. So it's true that it's a completely different challenge, but I'm very positive and optimistic regarding the future.
Perfect. Thanks.
Yeah, I think we need to put human first because we are still humans, maybe not augmented yet, but we are still humans. And we need to see that we need to change our societies to cope up with this. So if we need to, we want to keep working because working is something good for humans. We need to think in new models. I think, for example, the New Zealand model of trying to delay, instead of having 5 days of work, you work just 4 days a week, and maybe 3, maybe 2, maybe 1, could be one option. Since if we are starting to automate many things, instead of getting rid of the humans, we may need to have them working less, basically working what is more important to do the job, and have machines do the other stuff. So I think we need to
20-hour work
rethink,
weeks.
yeah, we need to rethink the model of societies here. You have in
That's
Australia too 4-day weeks now?
Yeah, there you go.
I
But
definitely
I,
like the
I think I passed that robot test where it says click here if you're not a robot.
Yeah.
So can you actually prove that I am or am not a robot?
Good question.
All right.
Yeah.
Well, let's get into, we're going to wrap things up quickly. Just want to do a quick
Awesome.
lightning round. Just what is your biggest topic or biggest idea about AI, big data right now at this moment in time?
Well, we in the Keenfolks, we want to automatize the digital gap. So we want to understand the connection and how we help companies to identify and score what is the digital gap to steer their competitiveness. So this is, I would say, the big idea that we are working on, and it's for us a very fertile area that we are putting a lot of resources.
And I'm really intrigued to see, how it will roll out further. I'll give you an example, another example of an organization I was chatting with, and this whole post COVID-19 and what does it mean to an organization, manufacturing organization, shop floor, has people working on the floor, right? The organization that offered the solution was an IoT organization who quickly adapted their solution so that it would have sensors for the floor. And essentially what these sensors on the floor do is they isolate, they scan for all humans that are on the floor. And what they do is they take everybody's temperature, these sensors, right? And in a case where that temperature exceeds the limit and might show casing of fever and potential COVID, then they immediately have protocol in place to act on that, all automated, right? Well, when I was told this story from the organization, the company that was looking at the solution immediately wanted a PO. And he said what was so surprising about it, they haven't even discussed pricing at that point. That's how fast they moved on this thing, right? So to me, it's really interesting to see how these organizations, after this post, this whole epidemic that we're all experiencing, what to see these kind of examples come to life is quite exciting to me. I think it's huge opportunity.
Yeah, and it almost starts with the idea first, right? Hey, we can do this. Did you know that we can do this? Oh yeah, let's do that right now.
Yeah, I would even say, like David, I think that David is one of the big motivators to make possible things that seems impossible. So he's always in the board trying to reinforce this idea, and I'm really a fan of that. I'm a fan of thinking about making possible what seems impossible.
Yeah, what I
Fantastic.
call the impossible factors. I think we need to be challengers of these impossible factors. We all through time think of things that are probably impossible. For me, it's a bad word. I don't use it. But probably in the past, we may think that some things were impossible. But if you look at it with today's technology, with today's eyes, probably they are possible today. And for me, the key point at the end is trying to don't waste your time. Don't waste your time either as a human or as a company, and don't do repetitive tasks anymore. Basically, learn to automate and automate as soon as possible before it is too late.
Absolutely. And as a kid, I watched Star Trek. I was intrigued with it. I also lived with 3 channels, so I only had so much to watch, right? But one thing that really
I
stuck.
remember those days.
Yeah. You sat and you watched this and you thought, wow, they can go to a replicator and they can just get food. Well, we're there with 3D printers, right? Or the whole interacting with someone with a different language and just being able to talk to them. You know, that just seemed out of this world. Well, we're right there. Like, what next?
And that's going to be what we need to decide next. So there's lots to go through, and from my perspective, it's really part of, you know, developing. I know the ideas are super important, but can you sort of look at the problem and look at the challenges in terms of how do you sort of need to realign your assets, how you need to realign the ecosystem and your strategy in today's day and age? Because without understanding that, you might fall into that chasm instead of jump in the gap, as we're all hoping to do. So I'm going to get into questions coming up. So if you do have some questions, feel free to put them in the chat box, and we'll hopefully get to those questions. And if you'd like, we can actually have you come up on screen and ask a question, and then our panel can answer that question too. So start typing in your questions in the chat box, and we'll be happy to get through those. Just in closing, I'm just going to keep things rolling here while we get a few questions coming. Next week, we're going to be having our part 2 of the show, where we're going to be talking with some other global experts as well, talking about the Keenfolks study, about the digital gap. And we're going to be talking about customer experience across the digital gap. So it's going to be a pretty exciting program to come and see as well. Please like, share, comment. If you're watching this on social through the live, please hashtag replay or whatever the case may be. And we'd love to hear more from you. Please hashtag the digital gap as well. And hopefully we can answer those quick questions as quickly as possible. So I am going to switch off live, and we are going to just stay on Zoom to answer the questions and that sort of thing. So my name is Doyle Buehler, and on behalf of our guests, thank you so much for spending your valuable time with us. We truly hope that you have learned some new insights today. I really want to thank the panel. We will see you online, and let's continue on with the questions. And I'll just turn off live. All right, cool. So we're off live now. So anybody who does want to chat, who does want to come and talk, just raise your hand and I'll bring you into the panel, and we can.
I think we have a couple on the chat, I think.
I think there's a couple chats there. Yeah.
I can ask here as well. So first of all,
Sure.
thanks so much for this amazing panel discussion. It was really super exciting. And I think we all learn a lot. So thanks so much. And basically my question is, what kind of unexpected failures can happen in companies built upon AI? Maybe you have experience already this, so I thought it would be interesting to know.
Yeah, for me, it's all about the data that you use to train your algorithms. If they are biased, you get like biased results. If your models also, you don't trust them, you don't trust the data that they have been trained with, that's another key issue. So I think the bias regarding to data or regarding to the models that we create are two of the main challenges here.
That's a really great point, David. There's a lot of issue with bias right now, just not representing a complete cross section of society. I think that has to be, you really have to look at inclusion. You have to ensure that, you know, you're considering all factors when you're looking at that and how you build out, right? Because there has been things that clearly come up. So like, that's where your data design and how and a holistic approach is so key.
Yeah, and from my perspective, I've been involved in like some fintech fundraising and fundraising panels and that sort of thing. And what I've found is that the failure of a lot of these pitches comes down to they're not real. They don't really understand the side of the customer. Like, what is the customer? What is the audience expecting to do, or how are they going to enable this technology as well? So sometimes we do think of, you know, these great big plans, but there's no practical aspect of it right now at this point in time. Maybe there is down the road, but for this point in time where, a bank or a financial institution or whatever is at, it's a little bit beyond what that audience is ready for. So for me, that's where a failure point can come from. It's looking at that long range picture and can I present it today, even though it might not be available till tomorrow?
And I think two good questions. Why am I doing this today? And do I need to do this tomorrow? Right? Like there's a great opportunity to better define process, to better define how these things are working, and better enable, hooks from emerging technology. Maybe you bust a process right in part, right? Maybe that's your opportunity. I think you have to take a better look at that.
Yeah, definitely the human gap is an important one. How we build up the technology, thinking about a human-centered vision, because most of the failures can come from there, and it's a clear risk. And the other one that I would build upon, and it was already mentioned by Tony, it's the capability of vision to establish a vision of the future. We see in the many examples of technology, when there is no global understanding on how to cope with technology and how to interact, we have bad decisions regarding technology, and then we have to come back. It's the same regarding the vision that we have of data and AI. We need to establish a vision long term and then come back and start with an operative plan that can make it real.
Excellent.
I think I'm going to reference a book, Miguel, that you pointed out to me, right? Yes, if you can see on screen there, like this is key. I think design, the experience when business meets design, right? Like you have to back things up and look at the whole experience. And what does that mean? And how does that mean to the technology you're embracing to get the most value out of it?
Good stuff. Okay, so we have another question here from Angelica. Which benefits can AI bring when executing content marketing campaigns? So that's interesting. We're adding a little bit of marketing to this one. So we did talk about automation, and maybe that's something to talk about too, as part of this. Is there too much automation now in terms of marketing? Do we really know what that automation is doing, or are we just kind of throwing it out there and see what sticks?
Yeah, definitely. I think that there is a point here very related with marketing technology. So we are seeing popping up a lot of platforms that enables a lot of functionalities regarding content creation and really bridge up in terms of design, in terms of the importance and resolution, and especially regarding the potential that some ideas might have in terms of positioning not only brands but also companies. So I think that we were going to see much of that. I think that one of the important points is think about automation, not only in terms of data and AI development, but also thinking about what is out there. And if we look back and we see the complete transformation of marketing technology scenario, we will see that we have a lot of offers right now that might bridge the gap. And definitely it's going to be an important area.
Excellent. Thanks. David?
Yeah, I think at the end, the next phase regarding that is really having the content created by AI too. We are not there yet for many scenarios. Of course, we do a lot of A/B testing and many other things and many other, basically to focus what are the best are or not. But in the long term, we're going to start to see more of these fully content created by AI and fully personalized, because at the end, you need to know the customer and you need to basically drive or show the ad that is going to be relevant for him or for her. And that's one of the key areas of development at the moment.
Yeah, and for me, it comes down to, personalization as well. We build trust online, and a lot of that has to do with personalization. And can we create better, more personalized tools with AI? Absolutely. I've seen, images where you can add the names and to videos and objects and that sort of thing, and you're personalizing that journey. And to me, that's a fascinating aspect of it, because that's what really people are looking for, is how can we personalize that journey for them? And I think if we can enable that with AI, like that leverages that capability so quickly, right? We can bring them on that journey very quickly, and it's timely and it's relevant and it's we're spending time with them and we're building trust for that, business interaction at the end of the day.
It's a great point. Yeah.
Very good question. Yes.
Cool. All right. So we've got another from Alexandros. How would you see ethical companies reacting to deal effectively with the low-cost outsourcing, which creates more biased data sets and currently is used in some cases? Does that question sound good?
I think what they're
Yeah.
saying is you're using like an outsourced resource to build out AI. Like let's use David's example, AI as a service, and that actual service maybe is a cheaper whatever, wherever you're getting it from, and it doesn't have the full depth and scope of what you'd like to see in it. I think that's kind of the point.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, I think that it comes up as well to a marketing technology point of view. So we still don't have, from the point of view of companies, they are not aware of all the possibilities that we have. And it's true that there is an embracement sometimes of low-cost tools that promise a lot, and then they offer results that are not really qualitative, especially in terms of data. So definitely we need to filter more, and we need to be more aware of what's out there and how to evaluate it to guarantee that the final output is serious and we are trusting in the right data as the global understanding in terms of business. So I think that it's an amazing area, and it's a very important thing to consider.
And you need to be educated in the field, so you don't get into the wrong path. Yeah.
And
Absolutely.
you have, yeah, exactly. And obviously, if you build out that skill set yourself, you're going to have better control over bias. You're going to have better control over ensuring you have inclusion, right? You're going to have all these driving factors. And I think that goes really to Miguel's point that you really have to do your due diligence with this. There's a lot of it's like, with great power becomes great responsibility. I'll quote a movie line, right? But it really does. Like you've got this ability to do some incredible things with your organization, with your people, but you also have a complete visibility out in the marketplace. So step wisely, right? Make this thing sing, because if it doesn't, it's going to blow up in your face, right?
Yeah, it could be a landmine.
Yeah.
All right, we've got a question from Navidya. Hopefully I pronounced that correctly. The taxonomy within computer science is AI, machine learning, deep learning, data science, and statistics. Which stage do you feel SMEs are in? As you said, we are in a nascent phase regarding AI, but where should companies focus on currently?
Well, I think deep learning is the trend, because the things that previously thought to be impossible just maybe 6 or 8 years ago were enabled by deep learning. So I think deep learning is the key technology that at the moment is driving everything, driving from languages from language to image understanding to many other things. So it probably is the key, regarding to technology, is the key one that is enabling all the others. Yep.
And I find it so interesting from a predictive perspective, right? How, like in manufacturing, the tracking of vibrations is being utilized, and deep learning is being digested into that, right? To manage actually the better maintenance of production and our machines and things like that. I find that quite intriguing.
There was a study, I didn't realize this before, but AI and that sort of thing for consumer devices, right? Did you know that the Apple Watch can actually know if you're washing your hands? And then it can kind of coach you on how to wash your hands?
Mm-hmm.
I heard that this morning. It's like, wow, that is actually quite amazing technology. So obviously they're able to measure that. Yeah.
That will help with my daughter for sure.
That goes to a whole other thing, like Alexa and everything at home, right?
Yeah. No, it's cool. And that's the powerful part, is being able to use that data of, your hands moving in a certain configuration and knowing that hey, this person's washing their hands. We need to, tell them or do something and act upon that.
Stay more time, or
Yeah, exactly. Spend your full 30 seconds washing your hands. Miguel, sir, did you comment on that too, or?
No, not yet. But I think that I would start by the end. What kind of company?
Yeah.
So where should the company focus on currently depends really on the companies. So I think that deep learning, of course, it's revolutionary, and for for sure it's going to be the one that it's going to allow a lot of things. But I think that depending on the companies, we should focus or not on these kind of more edgy areas. I'm sure that we will find solutions that are already working with it, and the capability of selecting, as we were referring before, it's going to be really important to differentiate where to start. Global vision, coming back to slice the opportunities and guarantee that we are working on different areas according with this vision and a clear understanding of the business. I think this is the key.
I'm curious though, who should own this? I know we didn't actually talk about that, and we could probably talk for days on this. But who should own this whole aspect of big data and AI? Is it the CEO? Is it the CDO? Is it, I don't know. You tell me. What are your guys' thoughts?
I think the CEO, yeah.
Yeah.
It must come from the top, yeah, and the board, yeah.
Perfect.
And I think the data scientists should have a seat at the table too.
Yeah.
I definitely think it's the CEO job. There is nothing really more important than manage data in the company, and I think that this kind of technology that is so disruptive can't be in the hand of nobody else besides the CEO. Unfortunately, it's not like that, but should be seen like that. And then I think that a full committee that guarantees the backup of the CEO, it's important as well.
Yeah, I've
it's a
kind of
scarce
seen
role, but also the chief artificial intelligence officer is starting to appear in some very, very big companies, basically like this data science on steroids. If it's really bad, but really starting to make it hands dirty. Basically, we need to have these people to really making the stuff. Yeah.
Wow. Tony, you had a comment or?
The CISOs, can you be involved? Can we add security into this conversation, right? Just like cloud, just like other technologies that evolved, right? And they just rolled them out and they didn't put security into play with it. Imperative security be in that design.
Yeah.
I totally agree, Tony. AI without security is nothing yet.
You are touching so important point, Tony. I think that the bridge between IT, marketing, and all the part of innovation and entrepreneurship is so important. And I think that without the global vision, there is a risk to fail. Absolutely.
Yeah. And I like the comments about who owns it in terms of, the CEO. I've seen we've had this digital gap, and since this crisis has started, a lot of companies have fallen into this chasm, right? And you need what's the new sort of term of leadership as a chief expedition officer to be able to organize the team and organize the cultures and the technologies and everything to be able to move that company past this digital gap. Anyway, I love talking
more
about
and more
that.
What I'm hearing is we need this picture of all these business people standing at the edge of this cliff, right? And on the other edge of the chasm is this, this digital plane that they want to get to, and how that's what I'm seeing more and more. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, so we have to navigate it properly. We'll have one more question and then we'll close off and go from there. So this personal question rather from Denny, what are possible ways forward to improve machine learning and AI development and use over their full life cycle? It's a good question. Who wants to take a stab at that?
I think you need to have a gradual approach on. Yeah, go ahead, Tony.
I look at it almost like you need to look at it like disposable technology, right? I think you need to build iterations and you need to build things out that are almost, maybe 3 years they become disposable, and it's not a huge issue, because if you think about it, in 3 years, we don't fully know where the technology will be. We'll have evolved the 5G much further, right? The edge will be evolved much further. So we don't know completely what that's going to look like today. So why not take the methodology and the mindset that you can do things today at pretty decent cost price points, right? And, budget it, obviously build it where it makes sense, where you're going to spend, again, back to your crown jewels and what makes sense, but still have that play in mind that disposable technology, things are changing, right? Why put so much energy into infrastructure that might not even be relevant in 3 years?
Yeah. Again, I think it's as small steps, this agile, this lean approach. I think you need to think that today's AI is going to be probably commoditized in maybe 5 years or less, or 3 years. So maybe think this step-by-step approach and with small chunks to keep learning and keep growing. Yeah.
Yeah, I definitely believe in that as well, David. I think that there is a triangle that should monitor and steer all these kind of projects. It's the combination of design thinking, lean startup, and agile, because by understanding that, companies can really go further. And like Tony was saying, with a good, very good price point today to start working on all these areas. So yeah, very good reflection.
Wow, excellent. What an amazing discussion this has been, gentlemen. Totally want to thank you. Thank you to the audience for the questions and patiently waiting as well while we get started. So love to do this again. Miguel, David, Tony.
Yeah, anytime.
Yeah, no, for
this
sure.
has
It's been a pleasure.
fantastic. Let's do her again. I'm in.
Yeah. Well, Tony, it's late for you. It's like 2 a.m., isn't it?
It's 2:30.
2:30.
Yeah, just well shy of 2:30. Yeah.
Yeah. Cool. So it's just
A bit
getting into
hungry.
evening for me. Miguel and David, I think you're just reaching lunchtime.
Yeah,
Yeah,
early
we
morning,
are.
early morning.
Yeah, cool. So thank you so much. Thank you everybody for watching. Really appreciate your time, and again, would love to talk with you guys some more. But next week we do have part 2 where we're going to talk about customer experience with a new panel. But who knows? Maybe we could do more of these as well in the future. So thank you again. Thank you everybody for watching. Have a great day. Fantastic day, evening, night, and yeah, take care. We'll talk soon.